right, so I just spoke to a bunch of you on the video chat, and this is going to be our next lesson, which is actually our first new lesson since we started this. So this is called the product rule. So it's how do we use the product rule to find derivatives, okay? We have a little do now here, a little warm up from the last lesson. Let's see, that'd be 2x to the 1/2 minus x to the -3rd plus 2. That's f of x, so just rewrote it. And then to find f prime of x, multiply the lead coefficient by the exponent. 2 times 1/2 is 1. X to the -1/2, subtract 1 from the exponent, minus, multiply the exponent times the lead coefficient, so that's minus -3x to the -4th. And then the plus 2 nothing happens. So I'm just going to rewrite this as 1 over x to the positive 1/2 plus, because negative and a negative, 3 over x to the 4th, which I'm just going to rewrite one more time, 1 over rad x plus 3 over x to the 4th. Cool. So what about something like this? Could you use the power rule to find the derivative of this? The power rule is what we just talked about. And the answer is yeah, you could take this right here, and you could multiply it out, and you get x squared minus 3x plus 2x minus 6, which is x squared minus x minus 6. So then the derivative, now we just use the power rule. 2x to the first minus 1. And that's not that bad, actually. And we could do that. But today we're going to learn what happens when I multiply two terms and I want to find the derivative of it. Do I have to multiply it out to get here? Or could I use something else? And the answer is you could use something else. You don't have to multiply out to get here. You can use what we call the product rule. So the product rule states that if a function f of x equals two different terms being multiplied, we'll call them g of x and h of x, then the derivative of f of x equals g of x, the first term, times the derivative of the second, plus the second term times the derivative of the first. So let's take a look at what that looks like. So, example 1, find the derivative f prime of x if f of x equals x squared plus 4 times x cubed minus 2 using the product rule, so using our new method. Now, if you are completely stuck and you don't know this new method, which you won't be, but if you are, you could multiply this out, get x to the 5th minus 2x squared plus 4, and do the whole thing and then use the power rule. But instead, let's use the product rule. So what I like to do here is call this g of x and call x cubed minus 2 h of x. So now if we follow this rule that says f prime of x equals g of x times h prime of x. Well, what's the derivative of x cubed minus 2? It's just 3x squared. The minus 2 does not have a part for the derivative. Plus h of x, which is x cubed minus 2, times g prime of x. Well, g of x is x squared plus 4, so the derivative of g of x is 2x to the first. Okay, now this looks kind of gross, so we actually still are going to have to do some work. So f prime of x equals, well, let's just simplify this now. We get 3x to the 4th plus 12x squared plus 2x to the 4th minus 4x, which means that f prime of x equals, well, 3x to the 4th and 2x to the 4th. We get 5x to the 4th plus 12x squared minus 4x. So if you want to evaluate the slope at any given moment, the instantaneous rate of change, or the slope of the tangent line, remember derivative means all of that, you would now have this formula here. So then the question says, what is the slope of the tangent line at x equals 1? Here we go. So f prime of 1 just means substitute 1 in. And when you evaluate this, you'll get, 1 to the 4th is 1, 1 times 5 is 5, plus 1 squared is 1, 1 to 12, minus 4, which is 17 minus 4, 13. So at the moment when x is 1, the slope of the tangent line is 13. Pretty steep. So if you looked at this, at 1, the graph would be going up at that point, and the tangent line would be pretty steep with a slope of 13 over 1. Okay, let's do one more with the product rule, and then I'll let you guys go ahead and just practice them. Okay? So, what do we got? Find f prime of x if f of x equals 3x squared plus 5x times 2x cubed minus 7x. You can see how multiplying this out kind of can get nasty, so we're just going to call this g of x. We're going to call it h of x, and we know that f prime of x equals, so we can go back and see, gh prime plus hg prime. So gh prime plus hg prime. Now, a couple things. Order of operations, it's multiplication and addition. You can do it in either order as long as you take not derivative and derivative and then switch it. So, f prime of x, let's see. G of x is just 3x squared plus 5. H prime, the derivative of this, 6x squared minus 7. Plus h times g prime. What's the derivative of 3x squared plus 5? That's 6x. Now we have to multiply this out. And yeah, it is kind of nasty, I get that, but we got to do it. 18x to the 4th minus 21x squared plus 30x squared minus 35, and then over here, a lot easier, plus 12x to the 4th minus 42x squared. Last step, combine like terms. So we get for the final derivative, let's see, 18x to the 4th, 12x to the 4th, that's 30x to the 4th. No x cubes, all x squared, add the x squareds together, you get minus 33x squared minus 35. Okay, so what is the slope of the tangent line at x equals 1? So plug in 1, you get 30 times 1 to the 4th minus 33 times 1 squared minus 35, which at 1, you plug that in, you get 30 minus 33 minus 35, which is negative 38. So there you go. So again, just to recap, if you have two terms being multiplied and you want to find the derivative of that entire term, you take, to find the derivative, take the g of x times h prime of x, the derivative of h, plus h of x times the derivative of g. All right, so you can even shorten this if you want. F prime of x, we could say equals gh prime plus hg prime. Okay, now if you're good at this point, you can stop. You can go ahead and try the delta math. If you want, I am going to do one more problem. It's up to you to stay or not. Go do the delta math. If you want to stay, I'm going to do one more. Let's go down. Let's try number 4. So if I call this h and I call this g. So f prime of x, hg prime plus gh prime. So h g prime, what is the derivative of 4x squared? It's 8x to the 1st plus g times the derivative of h is negative 10x to the 1st, and the constant goes away. Multiply this out. Negative 40x squared minus 32x minus 40x cubed, which simplifies to, oh, that's a mistake, negative 40x cubed. Okay, so we get negative 80x cubed minus 32x. Okay, if you're good now, you can go ahead. If not, send me a message, and good luck.